Dan, how is Green Bay able to keep Stroud so in check throughout this one?
Yeah, their defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, stole from Brian Flores, and I mean that in a complimentary way. CJ's worst game of his career, really, if you go back about a month ago, has been against the Minnesota Vikings. And the Packers just stole the same stuff, essentially, the 7-up man pressures. I did find it interesting that oftentimes it was the internal pick game, meaning they would run one person inside the pocket at the center, they would pick him, and they would wrap someone around. And I think it's a little bit of a respect to CJ. There's no point in really bringing pressure off the edges against him. He's so good maneuvering in the pocket. They wanted to create the chaos inside of the pocket. It's a tip of the hat to Jeff Hafley, who's a defense coordinator at Green Bay. Get him into those situations and get those 7-up pressures, and those internal pick stunts wreaked havoc against Houston's pass game and their pass protection.
And Dan, when the Packers made the change at defensive coordinator, I think a lot of us were hopeful that a different coach could get more out of the existing players. And yesterday, you really saw that come to fruition, their best performance of the season. To your point, Hafley did a great job of leaning on those simulated pressures, not too dissimilarly from what we see with Minnesota. I thought the stunts that you allude to also not only very effective in terms of confusing the Texans' offensive line, but really well suited to the players on this defensive line. A lot of the times they were to spring open or to get favorable matchups for Rashawn Gary and at times Kenny Clark. Both of those guys are stud athletes. They're so agile, and in many ways, I feel like this is a better usage of them than just asking them to line up and rush the passer. And I think that's something that they can build on moving forward, is figuring out, this is our pass rush. How can we get the most out of them? Because before this game, they hadn't been able to generate this much pressure.
Yeah, Dan, you mentioned how Jeff Hafley is able to steal this from Brian Flores. I realize not everyone may be able to pull it off with the personnel, but is this a blueprint to try and defend Stroud and limit him going forward?
Oh, 100%, specifically without Nico Collins on the field. You know, said last week, even they scored 40, Nico was missed, and you saw it again. So if this Houston offense is still going to be relatively poor running the football on first down, they've had some explosives, but not consistent enough, and they get into those obvious passing situations. This offensive line since week 1 has struggled in obvious pass situations to protect C.J. Stroud. He's just covered up against it. Now this is 2 moments where teams are running this very specific scheme and having a ton of success doing it. Everybody will against them.
Dan, what are your concerns about this Jets offense?
Well, it seemed last night that Rodgers doesn't throw the ball anywhere but the perimeter with confidence. If it's a one-on-one ball on the outside, he feels good about it and he's going to cut it loose. But right now, the ball over the middle field, there's a lot of hesitation in his game. Okay, number 1, the interception right before the half. I very rarely see Aaron Rodgers double clutch and not pull the trigger. If Garrett keeps this ball more vertical, that's going to be a 30-yard game, but that hesitation on what he's looking at or the trust of what he's looking at is there. Now, Garrett Wilson in the slot. RC knows this. They're playing man coverage, Pittsburgh. He's looking right at Garrett. Maybe he's staring at Devontae, but if he looks at that inside slant, the way that Minka plays over the top, Garrett might catch and run for a touchdown there. And then the final one, down in the red zone, up the top of the screen, Devontae's going to run a switch release seam. Play fake. Devontae's wide open. I mean, that's a touchdown with just a little bit of a touch throw. But again, he's like peeking at the perimeter, and it becomes a wasted rep. I think when he throws the one-on-one shoulder or back shoulder fake to the perimeter, he feels really good about it. But right now, specifically last night as well, anything that's over the middle, there's a hesitation in his game of pulling the trigger and kind of throwing guys to a spot.
Yeah, Dio, I 100% agree. Listen, man, all I could think about yesterday watching this game was, one, how good Matt LaFleur was for Aaron Rodgers. That's number 1. And the other thing is that he is not playing at a level to cover deficiencies. I still don't know what the Jets' plan is offensively going into games, week in and week out. Outside of hopefully Aaron can make some incredible throws and we can create some explosive plays. We showed the Breece Hall, that was a dump down. That was a get rid of the football, and Breece made the play. But from a concept-wise, and I get it, like it's newness. Todd Downing took over. Obviously, Brick is coaching, the head coach now. But this team offensively needs to hurry up and figure out who they want to be from an offensive standpoint beyond Aaron Rodgers, or this thought process that Aaron Rodgers can bail us out. It was generalistic for me. Like, there were a number of things you could have broke down, but to me it seems like they just leaning on the old man arm as opposed to putting a plan together to attack people.
The old man arm. There you go. Mina, I mean, they also brought in Davante Adams this week, and I realize it's just a one-game sample size in this Jets offense, but was he everything and the game changer that the Jets hoped he would be?
So he had 9 targets, 8 were under 10 yards. That's a problem. And that's not because of Davante Adams. Dan highlighted one play where he was open downfield. You saw with the Raiders he can still separate and get open. But right now, in this offense, there is both an unwillingness in times and an inability to push the ball downfield in a way that stresses defenses who are already completely unconcerned about the run game. If you can't run the ball, you got to be able to push the ball downfield, but they can't do that right now either. So to Marcus's point, they're really left without any easy answers because of the limitations of this offense.
You have an historically risk-averse quarterback who's making mistakes and turning the football over. And what it's making him do is become a shell of his confident self. The way that Aaron Rodgers talks is not the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing right now. Who Aaron Rodgers used to be, Aaron Rodgers no longer is. And Aaron Rodgers is having to come to terms with not being that person and figure out how he can play at this point of his career. That's why he needs more creativity. That's why he needs to be in a place that gives him some easy throws, because now he's even missing some of the throws he's probably missed his entire career that we never noticed, because the ones that he did make were so phenomenal. He can't move and create like he used to, and he's not willing to pull the trigger like he used to. So if you don't have people around Aaron Rodgers who are now elevating him, this is what you'll get, a flat performance by your offense.
You know, it was interesting. You guys heard Aaron Rodgers himself talking about accountability. That was a big emphasis last week. And in being on that sideline and watching this Jets team, there was a ton of accountability when they would come off the field. They would all be pointing at themselves saying, that's my bad, that's my bad. But yet we haven't seen that translate yet to an effective offense. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't go well. Here's Bill Belichick today on how this Chiefs defense was able to contain Purdy.
The Chiefs play about a little over 35% man-to-man, which is a pretty high percentage. Last year in the Super Bowl, they played almost 67% man-to-man, so a lot more man-to-man. It's not all blitzing, but it's all man-to-man, and that loaded the box on the early runs and created some long yardage situations where Spags could play more man-to-man and more blitz on 3rd and long. And it looked like yesterday they played a lot of man-to-man, just didn't blitz as much, so I think that was Spags' general philosophy. And then, honestly, their defensive players played good. They tackled well. They contained Purdy, and Purdy, had some tough plays.
That from the Pat McAfee show today. Dan, what do you think of what Belichick said there?
I thought it was fascinating, and I've never really heard anybody describe the defensive plan against San Francisco and Brock Purdy in that way. And after Mina goes, I want to bring RC's perspective in, but he talked about some of the longer distance stuff as well. And it was interesting to see how confused they got Brock Purdy to play, how not seeing defenders they got Brock Purdy to play. Now, Brock has always been an ultra-aggressive quarterback, but he very rarely has put the ball into double coverage or not seen blitzes or thrown a corner route when a guy's running a slot comeback or, forced the ball into double coverage just very uncharacteristically. And I think the attachment of the early down plan into forcing into those situations was, again, masterclass by Spags.
So went back to the Super Bowl and looked at the numbers that the Niners put up, and their leading target getters in that game were Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. McCaffrey obviously didn't play, Samuel goes out. I bring that up not to make excuses for some of Purdy's decisions, but rather to point out in this matchup, to beat this Chiefs defense that plays a ton of man coverage, you want to attack the linebackers, talked about that on Friday, those are the 2 players that were missing. And I'm not saying they would have won. Obviously, the Super Bowl result is what it is. But increasingly watching this San Francisco offense, they're running out of the types of players you need to win matchups against elite defenses like Kansas City. And obviously, some of those players will come back. You lose Ayuk, but I think what we're seeing is they're just running out of. They used to have every option possible to play every single kind of matchup: zone coverage, man coverage, defense that's good with linebackers, defense with linebackers of weakness. Now they don't have all of those answers, and I think this game was a direct result of that.
Yeah, I want to bring RC in if I can because, and I don't know if the sound was there because I couldn't hear guys, but RC, the most fascinating thing that Belichick said today on Pat's show was he was talking about them playing man coverage, and he said what it allows them to do is not get outnumbered. San Francisco offensively, they want a formation or motion and outnumber you, and in zone defense, they can, and in man defense, they can't. I wanted your perspective on that.
Well, you think about this team, and you talked about 4-by-1, which is flow to a defense. You don't necessarily have to line up in that. And we've seen the San Francisco 49ers get to 4-by-1, and then they want to win the matchup in the zone. When you're playing man-to-man in the way that the Kansas City Chiefs do, you're matching like bodies. If you go back to the Super Bowl, it was L'Jarius Sneed on Brandon Ayuk. We did see a lot of Trent McDuffie on Deebo Samuel. And then there was the matchup of the backers against Christian McCaffrey or safeties in Justin Reed, and that was where the San Francisco 49ers thought they could win. Coming into this game, you thought maybe Brandon Ayuk, but that George Kittle would be the matchup problem. And at the end of the day, he was the one guy that had a good opportunity. But when you look at Brock Purdy to start your career with all of these options and to now be at a point to where you need to throw guys open, it's a difficult adjustment for him to make. And I think just sometimes against great defenses, you can press. And we saw that yesterday.
Yeah, that's well said, RC. I mean, when you think about what Brock Purdy was dealing with yesterday, Deebo Samuel wasn't healthy. Seems like just an illness, so at least it seems like they'll have him. But as you heard Adam reporting earlier, Brandon Ayuk could end up being out for the season. We'll wait and see what Shanahan says about that.
Bring in the new year, BMB.
Man, I'm bad.
Do you guys love it or what?
They know we the best athletes on the football field. We are blessed with the hand of God. BMB, BMB. We do this for the money. Won't stop till I get me a bag.
I'ma name him Himothy Johnson III.
Oh, that belly give us a little extra cushion. Squeeze me. Dance on them. Yeah, ride the pony, baby.
Drinks on me, club on me. We be tired, but we be ballin'.
Man, I'm big. I'm big. I'm bad.
You know, I was thinking, I'm gonna do BMB today, and I ain't gonna get no haircut because I want to look rough and rugged. I'm lying. My barber was out of town. Let's go to the BMB. Khalil Davis, the big fella from San Francisco, even in a loss, tips and overthrows, we got to get those. But very rarely do we tip or overthrow to ourselves and pick off Patrick Mahomes. See, it don't matter who you are to a BMB. You just got to get this business. It don't matter if you Mahomes and you on trend to be the greatest ever. It don't matter if you Tom Brady. When we big and we get our hands on the ball, we usually end up with it. Next, let's go my man Dante Fowler. First of all, y'all, the beauty is in the pick six, but that ain't the most beautiful thing. The most beautiful is that ha-ha right there that he put on the quarterback, that ha-ha to get downfield. And then look at the big fella escort, my dog Deron Payne. We get a 2-for-1 special of B&Bs showing out. And I love when it's just us on the part of the field because you can see how sweet we look. Now I'm gonna go to college. My big dog Jason Williams, Central Michigan, scoop and freaking score, man. We don't play around with getting caught at the goal line like some of these little bitty running backs. 6'2", 290 pounds of glory of a B&B. And look at him get escorted by the other B&Bs to the end zone. Y'all, it was a group effort this week. And everybody got A's, but everybody did work. Look at the big fella. Pick them up and put them down. We are getting more and more athletic by the day because we scoring touchdowns when we get our hand on the ball. And last but not least, I got to get a Big Dogs Vita Bear some love. Y'all always showing these short, these dudes that can buy clothes out of the mall or see with his good-looking ass suits. The big fellas can get dressed up too. All right, we just chilling. This a chill outfit. He got the J's on. He jaywalking. He got the big chain. He got a nice little breeze killer is what I call it when you throw the little jacket on. And yeah, we can wear tight, skinny jeans. They just bigger than skinny. They skabini. B&B.